Stresses are normal disturbances in the Earth's surface. They are very thin lines which are almost like walls, vertical walls. They run north, south and east, west, and their spacing is about 5 meters to 15 meters. And there are also underground water streams which may be 30 meters or 70 meters below the Earth. So the energy of the Earth above them gets disturbed. So when people are sitting or sleeping or working on these zones or lines, then over a period of time their health gets disturbed. So we have done about 1500 establishments where we've done geopathic surveys and corrections. So this has been researched in Europe and US. It's known as geobiology, like in France they call it geobiology, and in US as geomancy. But in about 20 years back, the whole science was swept under the carpet because people found that real estate was very expensive. So all these geopathic surfaces energies have about 20% of the Earth's surface is infected with this. That means 20% of all people living are affected by this without knowing that they are. So they are sitting ducks to various kinds of diseases like cancer. So there was a doctor called Dr. Ernst Hartmann. He did a case on 500 people. He did a survey on 500 people who had cancer. And he went back to their places of stay and work. And he found that there was 100% correlation between cancer and geopathic stress, because all those people were found to be either sitting or sleeping on geopathic line for more than 4 years. So he concluded that cancer was a disease of location and not a DNA disease. So these are there, and there are other underground disturbances. You may have some kind of a mineral under the earth which is not good for people. So if you build a house on that radiation from that mineral is strong enough to flow up many floors. And nowadays we blast the ground. When we build, we don't dig the ground.
No.
So when we blast it, the metals melt and they form pools under the ground. And some of them may be radioactive, some of them may be harmful, which we don't know. There's not enough research on it. But everything has a wavelength. So this is an instrument called the Lecker antenna.
And you can take a closer thing of the Lecker.
It's pretty close.
Lecker antenna, which was invented by Dr. Ernst Lecker in the 40s. He was a house doctor, and he found that in his practice of 20 years, there were different families in that place which got the same disease, different families staying in the same house, because people used to move house every 2-3 years based on their jobs or something. So the different families who came, they started getting affected with the same kind of diseases. So he started researching what are the things in the house. So he found that things like high tension lines very near the house can cause cancer. He found that, let's say, you have sharp edges, sharp beams. So if people are sleeping on, if the ceiling is low and there are sharp beams, then you could also get affected, you could have blood pressure. So he looked at this instrument. This works on resonance like a tuning fork. It has a scale which has of 20 centimeters, because the waveform of the body, wavelength of the cell is 20 centimeters. Any wavelength which is less than that, which means it has a higher vibratory frequency than the cell of the body, has an effect on the body, either good or bad. Now the good news or bad news is that almost all known things to us in living civilizations have wavelength of less than 20 centimeters, which means almost everything known to us either affects us some way. So what we do is that with European research, almost 1,000 wavelengths are known. So every bacteria has a wavelength, cancer has a wavelength, every organ of the body has a wavelength, the knees have a wavelength, the heart has a wavelength, throat has a wavelength. So you can actually, this has been used a lot in Europe and US as a medical device to check medical conditions. But we use it for that as well as we use it for looking at house energies. So these magnetic grid lines I was talking about, they are about 200 times more powerful than the energy of the human body. So it has a wavelength of 10. So I've set it at 10. I hold it at a particular tension and I scan. So when I move, I get this moves on its own. Can you see that? It's moving back. So there is a line here. So that means that people who will sit here, or if we project it straight, if there's anybody else sitting on that line, would get affected. So this way, when we correct this, so what in Europe they didn't use these things because they couldn't waste 20% of the real estate space. It was too expensive.
Are you able to go through more of this office and just to let us just to be
so
interested?
What we have done is we've invented certain kinds of chips which change the nature of the radiation. So when we fix the chip at two ends of this line, then instead of going back, this would go forward.
Okay.
Which means that the radiation is still there. But it goes back because when I am subjected to this radiation, my body becomes tense and it pulls it back. But when I am not tense, then it's okay, it's there. And when my body relaxes, suppose this radiation becomes a good radiation, then it goes forward because my arm, this nerves relax and it lets it fall forward. So this is the principle on which it works. We diagnose it, we look at about 25 different things in any office or home, and we had talked to the Prime Minister, who was the Chief Minister then of Gujarat, where he had thought that we should do it for all the government buildings. This is what might be of interest to Mr. Singh, and states like UP and Madhya Pradesh are already actively considering it, where they say that we can say that it can be a political thing, and it can be that we are modern, that we are the only state in the country or the only country in the world which has provided radiation-friendly surroundings to people. So we can look at geopathic stress, we can look at all the Wi-Fi devices, and with the chips that you have seen, we can correct that also. And we give a certificate at the end of it that everything, so we rate the buildings as silver and gold, depending on what you've done.
So this can speak with respect to Mantri. He has written in his autobiography, Mantri, about Vijay Singh. So he can go and talk to him about this. This will be a selling proposition to all the prospective buyers of the flats.
The builders also use it as a USP. Because when they sell their real estate, they say that there's this ancient science called Vastu here in India. So they can say that it has been Vastu corrected also, and it has
geopathic
and radiations have also been done. There are many builders who have published it in their brochures, saying that we've got environics done and you are getting a healthier
We
place.
have an existing in Bangalore. There's one builder who is